Hi there, Ronnie here, coming at you with a video. It's another long video of overview reviews of some of the games in my collection. In this case, it is tile games. Bit of a wide sort of umbrella term for this one. 9 reviews in all of games in my collection. I think they're all fun games, some more than others, but I think they're all certainly worth a look at. One of the things I wanted to do with this sort of series was maybe introduce games that people either haven't heard of or maybe haven't tried. This is particularly true for new gamers or non-gamers looking to maybe get into the hobby, and any of these games actually, with the exception of one, would be a good gateway game. The one would be Ingenious, which is a bit much, but the rest would be great sort of gateway games. So the 9 games, 9 of them, that I have reviewed in the upcoming video is Tsuro, Indigo, Qwirkle, Ingenious, Lattice, Labyrinth, Blokus, Hexagony and Lanterns. Again, just to say, this is my I filmed these on my phone. There is some video stuttering, not a lot I can do about that, but the audio is pretty clear, and hopefully you will enjoy the videos. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy the overview reviews, and I'll be back soon with another video. This is Tsuro, the game of the path. First of all, one has to say, this board is beautiful. The phoenix design on it is absolutely lovely. Just very sort of immediately eye-popping. I've taught this game a few times to people in my friendly local gaming store, and it's one of my favourites to teach new players, because it's so easy, and also because a lot of those players will avoid it because of the name. They see the name and they see the board and the beautiful phoenix on it, and they think that it's some very complex or exotic game, and it is really neither. The game itself is a doddle to play in terms of how you make your moves. As you can see, the board is divided into a 6x6 grid, and on each side of the squares of that grid you can see 2 white lines. You take your piece and you place it on the outside of the board at one of those white lines, and you can see that I have a 2-player game taken up here. This game will actually take up to 8 players, and believe me, this is one of the few games where more players is a faster game. You're then dealt 3 tiles. Now these tiles have lines on them, little white lines. No Grandmaster Flash references, please. So on your turn, and I will start with white, all you do is you place a tile always in front of your piece. In one of the grid spaces. You don't straddle the grids. You always place them on a grid space, not halfway, not half and half. And then you follow the path. And then you will pick back up to 3 again. And black. Let's see, because you can manipulate the tile to whatever side you want. He too is going to take that. turns go back and forward. The object of the game is very simple. Stay on the board. Because the main rule is you must keep moving as long as there is path in front of you. Now, for your first few turns, there's not going to be much path in front of you because you're probably going to be away from each other. But as the board begins to fill up with tiles, when you place a tile in front of you to move, you may very well be connecting onto tiles that already exist. And as long as there is path in front of your piece, you have to keep moving. If it moves you off the board, you're out. If it moves you to collide with another player, you're both out. So it becomes a game of last man standing. The other thing is that if in placing a tile in front of you, it also places a tile in front of another player, for example, if that black piece was there and I was there, say, then whoever went next, they would not only be placing a piece tile in front of themselves, they'd also be placing a piece for the other colour. And if that's the case, both pieces have to move because there's no path in front of them and they have to keep moving. What do I think of this game in general? I love it. It's wonderful. It's very simple. Quite a sedate game as well. I find it quite peaceful to play in spite of it all. Strangely, as I say, the more players, the faster this game goes because the grid fills up quicker. There's 36 grid spaces. There's 35 tiles. The 36th tile is this dragon piece, which comes into play with if you have more than two players. If a player runs out of tiles, then if another player goes out first, the player who first went out of tiles, they take this dragon tile. And if another player goes out and they've got tiles left, then the person with the dragon tile gets first pick. I love it. It's a simple little game. It's easy to teach. I can teach the basics inside of 2 minutes. Very easy to play. And I've probably found more people who are sort of traditionally non-gamers or are used to the sort of usual suspects of Cluedo and Monopoly and so on, who have tried this game and fallen in love with it and play it a lot. So that's Tsuro. This is Indigo, which I don't think Ravensburger had Tsuro in mind when they made this. It may even been made before Tsuro, but it's certainly, for my money, the next step up. For anyone who plays Tsuro and wanting something a bit more, or as an alternative for Tsuro, this one certainly hits the mark. It plays slightly similarly. It's a 2 to 4 player game. I've set up a 2-player game here of blue and red, and you can see muckers here. You can see markers there. And over here for red, and you can see them all the way around the board there. The object of the game is to try and get these gems. You can see the yellow gems over here. You can see 5 green gems and a blue gem in the center. You're trying to get them over to your markers over here. And you're using, similarly to Tsuro, paths. Now, the main rulebook says that you start with 1 tile each. However, it does have a variant in it which says that you start with 2 tiles each, and you get to pick which one you're going to play. This is the one I've always used, possibly because I'm so used to having 3 tiles with Tsuro. But also I think it gives it a bit of oomph. So we're going to start with blue. I have not pulled all the tiles. There are plenty of tiles, more than enough to fill up the space. I've only pulled enough so just to give you a vague idea of the game. So let me start with that. And just like Tsuro, you're creating paths. And we have red. Red is gonna try and get something a little more straight on, like that. And we get another tile. Blue now looks, and blue is going to go like that. You can see at the side here these little symbols. These are the sides that the token, the gem, can come out of. And if you happen to collect it, then the gem goes behind your screen here. Yellow gems are worth 1 point. Green gems are worth 2. Blue in the centre is worth 3. Interestingly, although it's a hexagon, there are only 5 green gems and a blue. The reason for this is the first 5 tiles that are placed around that centre will take off a green gem. The 6th and final one will take off the blue gem. And basically that's how it's played. The only variant really when you start playing, particularly with 4 players, is that you will have more than one colour on this side, on each side. So getting a gem to your side will also give a gem to your opponent, so you sort of take that in mind. And there are extras. There are extra gems, so there's enough for the other player to get. What do I think of the game? I love this game. It's a good game. Is it fair to call it a slightly more advanced Tsuro? Possibly not, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're someone who's played Tsuro and found it a little light, or maybe you're looking for something of a similar style to Tsuro, but you don't... Some of the other games that you've looked at look a little much. This is worth a punt. It really is. It's a good wee game. It's a lot of fun, and I recommend it highly. This is Qwirkle, a game that I have mentioned a few times in previous videos and so on. And it is one of my sort of favourite... Would I call it a domino variant? Certainly there are aspects of it that I would consider to be similar to dominoes. I saw someone describing it as it plays a bit like Scrabble. It plays a bit like dominoes and scores a bit like Scrabble. And I think that's a fairly apt thing. I've set up a 2-player game here. I'm setting up lots of 2-player games, mostly because they're easier to show. So the first player, the person who plays first, is the person who can do the longest line. Now, lines are either the 6 different shapes of the same colour, or the 6 or the same shape in the 6 different colours. There are 108 tiles altogether in that bag, and literally there are 3 of each individual tile. So for example, there are 3 green circles in the bag. So the person who can make the longest line starts. So the longest line that this guy can make is a line of 3. And the longest this one can make is a line of 2. So this one would start. And he would place his things down. And he would get 3 points. And then he would pick back up to 6. Not 7. Now, players from then on in are either adding 2 lines or making new lines, but it must be joining tiles that are already out, which is where the Scrabble analogy comes from. Now, when you're adding to a line, when you're adding any tile, they must match not just the one that they're touching, but the line that they're part of. Let me explain. This would not be allowed because this is a line of green tiles and this blue one doesn't fit. Simply playing that first tile would be fine, and that would get that player 4 points. Now, certainly the player could take his 2 tiles and play them like that, creating a new line perpendicular, in which case they would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. Or, I mean, you could play that, which would be only 4 points. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't know why they would do that. If you manage to get a line of 6, because no doubles can go into the line. There can be no doubles. So I've got a line of greens there, but I couldn't have another green diamond or a green circle or a green square in that line. So I have like 2 stars here, 2 yellow stars there. I couldn't have them both in the same line because that would be a double and it's not allowed. If you do get a line of 6, either the 6 different shapes of one colour or the one shape in the 6 different colours, it's called a Qwirkle. And when you finish a Qwirkle, you get a bonus of 6 points on top of whatever you're scoring. Game continues until all the tiles are out the bag, again very Scrabble-like, and someone has gotten rid of all their tiles. The person who does that gets an extra 6 points. And whoever has the most points is the winner. If there's a tie, you tie. There's no tie break. What do I think of Qwirkle? I love it. It's a really good game. It's not... It can be a bit of a sort of beast to get a hold of straight away. I have had to sort of handhold people through games at times. But the basic concepts are there, and as long as everyone's playing, it's fine. I think it's a great wee game. And it works. I mean, it says 2 to 4. You can just about get 5 in. But 2 to 4 works best, I think. And it's a great wee game. Sick of dominoes? Want to try something a little different? Try Qwirkle. This is Ingenious, which I don't want to say it's an advanced Qwirkle because that's really not fair to either game. But anyone who has played Qwirkle will feel a little more at home with this game than coming to it. Coming to it blind. The object of the game is to have the most points, but in an ingenious way. Ta-da, with a name. You have, for example, your tiles in this are all doubles. And you also have this score tracker here. Now, how you place and how you score is fairly sort of unique. Again, I've set up a 2-player. The only difference in terms of playing is in a 2-player game, you may only use this white area in the center. A 3-player game allows you to use this light grey, and a 4-player game allows you to use the entire board. So on your first turn, you must play a tile that touches one of these 6 squares, 6 hexagons. It can be any of them. For obvious reasons, I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to choose that. Now, the way it scores is intriguing. What you do is you count the number of like symbols that are in a straight line from any of the sides of any of the pieces you've placed, but you don't count the piece that you've just placed itself. So in this case, we have 1, 2. So that would give 2 points for red. And then I would pick up 2. There really are more than just doubles in there, you know. And play, again, your first turn has to be with a... has to be next to, so we'll say that one there. Again, that would score me 2 points, but in yellow. Now, once you've had your first turn, you can do what you like. You can start building off of, for example, if I did that, that would get me 1, 2, that'd get me another 2 points in red. Doesn't give me anything for yellow at the moment because there's nothing attached to yellow. And the game would continue, you would keep building up the board. If you get one of your markers all the way to 18, you say, when on the turn that you do that, you say Ingenious, and you get an extra turn, because usually you only place 1 tile. After that first turn, it doesn't matter if it's still up at 18, you just get that 1 bonus move. Game continues until one of 2 situations happen. Either someone has got all 6 of their scorers up to 18, which case they win immediately and the game ends, or there's no legal moves left. If that happens, the person with the highest, lowest score wins the game. What do I mean by that? Well, let me just set up my board here. Like that. And let me just... I'm just playing about with numbers at the moment. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this. So, let's just say the game has ended. This player here would win. Why? Because this person's lowest score is this yellow, which is a 2. Whilst this player, their lowest score is a 4. Their lowest score is higher than this player's lowest score, so they would win. What this means is that you are constantly trying to make sure that all your colours are going up. You can't really concentrate on just one colour and dominating. You have to get them all up there, because getting them all to 18 is good, but more likely you're going to win by having the highest, lowest score. So you want to get them all up there, so you've got a better chance of winning, because more than likely you're going to win by the board filling up and having no more moves left. I love this game. It takes a while. It can take people a couple of turns sometimes to sort of get their head into the scoring, because the scoring can be very odd. For example, if there was a turn where that was in play, if I place that would give me 2 yellow and 1 orange. So it's an interesting game. You're constantly thinking about your moves. Can't really plan too far ahead, but you never know. Hopefully you sort of assume where other people might go, and you're either looking at blocking them or knowing that they're going to go that way. That leaves you clear to go that way and score some mega points. I think it's a great game, and if you're looking for something a bit heavier on maths but just as much fun, Ingenious ain't bad. This is Lattice, which possibly belongs, well, in my opinion, definitely belongs in that list of sort of unsung heroes as far as games concerned. This is a lovely little tile game. The object of the game is actually fairly simple. Get all your tiles out. As you can see, the artwork. There is a standard version and a deluxe version. I have the deluxe. Nothing against the standard version at all, but the deluxe comes with these nice acrylic tiles, lovely things, as opposed to sort of cardboard pop-outs. And I decided if I was gonna get a version of it, I was gonna pay the extra couple of quid for a version with better tiles. So, youngest player, oldest player, toss a coin. Whoever's going first, they always place their first tile in the middle square. So, let us place that there. And then they will pick up from their stack. And this game scales up completely. There are 84 tiles. So a 2-player game will play with 42 tiles each. A 3-player game will play with 28, and a 4-player game will play with 21 tiles each. So all the tiles get used. So from here on, you have to be touching a tile with any tile that you place, but it must be matching all the tiles orthogonally that it touches. Not diagonally, thankfully. That would be too much. So this is really the only one I can place. And I would pick up. Now, the game will continue placing tiles. It doesn't matter, unlike Qwirkle, when it comes to doubles, you can place ones right next to each other if you want. But they must be touching. There is an exception to that rule, which I'll mention in a moment. But you can see these little gems here. How do you win gems? Well, the little blue gems are known as half-stones. And you can get a half-stone if you match 2 sides of any tile that you've placed. If you're matching 2 sides, you get a half-stone. If you're matching 3 sides, you get a sunstone. And if you're matching all 4 sides, you get 2 sunstones. What are these used for? Well, 1 sunstone or 2 half-stones can be used for you to take another go. and 3 sunstones. And at this point, no, not 3 sunstones or 6 half stones, only sunstones, can buy one of these wind tiles. What do you do with wind tiles? Well, I will say that the other thing you can do, if you place a tile, not move a tile, which I'll explain in a second, but if you place a tile onto a square with a sun, you get a sunstone. A wind tile, when you play it, it just goes to the side, it doesn't go on the board, but then you can move any tile one space in any direction other than diagonal. And when you move a tile, it doesn't have to match the tiles round about it. But then you can immediately play a tile in either into that space or next to it, such as that. So the wind tiles can actually help you move in. The only thing is, if you use a wind tile to move a tile onto a square with a sun on it, you do not get a sunstone for it because you've moved it in there, you haven't placed. Game continues until someone's got their tiles up. In the exceptionally rare possibility that no one has a move left, which is really rare. I've never seen it happen. I guess it would be the person with the least tiles. It's not a situation I've ever seen. I love this game. It's very simple. It is an abstract game. I'm not going to lie to you. It is not a game that you look for if you're looking for deep, meaningful play. But if you like something that's quick, easy, got a bit of thought to it, you're planning ahead, but is quite a good. I would even go so far as to say this was a family game. So I would say, by all means, take it, play it. I think you'll love it. This is Labyrinth. And as tile laying games go, this is really the family end of the market. As you can see, the entire board is made up of tiles. Some of those tiles are fixed. They're on the board already. You can tell the ones that are on the board already because these little arrows denote an entire row of tiles that are laid randomly. You can see them all around the board. Whereas something like this candelabra is stuck there. It's actually on the board as well. The object of the game, and I've got all 4 players set up for this because it's just as easy to do a 4 as a 2, is you are secretly dealt treasure cards. Now, every item here, all these pictures here, represent a treasure. And the cards are always dealt out evenly. So there are 24 cards, so 2 players it would be 12 each, 8 for 3 players and 6 for 4. They're dealt face down and you keep them in a pile. Now on your turn, so each player will see the first one, so I will say green. Green is looking for the skull and crossbones, which is way over here, and green is starting here. So green will start, just because, well, he's there. There's always 1 tile left over. So what green is going to do is he is going to move 1 row of tiles. Now he's going to move this row here, and you can see it moving like that. And this now becomes the spare tile. And green can now move for as much as he is able, which is there. It would now be yellow's turn. And yellow is looking for the sword, which is over there. And not very helpful at all for yellow. Not helpful at all. That's not doing him any good. Now, the only rule is when you move a row, the tile that's left cannot go back in. So it can't go back in that row. It's always a good idea to leave the tile just on the edge of wherever it got pushed out of, so that you know you can't go back in there. So the game continues with moving rows, either vertical or horizontal, moving your piece, getting to a treasure. When you get to a treasure, you reveal that treasure in front of people and you will go on to the next one. And so on, until one of the players has revealed all their treasure cards and is declared the winner. It's that simple. Simple, straightforward, but because of the, first of all, the random setup, and because of the ever-changing nature of the maze, there's a lot of replay value in here. Yes, there's an insane amount of luck involved. There's no hiding it. It's an insane amount of luck. But there's nothing wrong with an insane amount of luck. If it creates an interesting game. And I like this game a lot. Yes, it's very light. It's very silly. And it's certainly, if you're looking for something very heavy and deep, this isn't the place to come. But if you're looking for a fun family game for 2 to 4 players, it's not bad. This is Blokus. And if Tsuro was one of the examples of a wonderful, gorgeous board, Blokus has about as plain a board as you could possibly get. All it is a board with lots of little squares on it, with ridges. And you get playing pieces. Now, I've only brought out a couple of pieces each, just to show the game. You get 21 pieces for each colour, and you get the exact same 21 pieces. The object of the game is to try and get all your pieces out on the board. The game is played very, very simply. Your first move, the first move that you make, must have a corner square. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, this green here, that would not be allowed because it is not covering the corner square. So that would not be allowed. We'll start with red. That's a perfectly legal move. It's covering the corner square. Let's do yellow. Again, perfectly fine. Let's do blue. Perfectly fine again. And let's do that for green. Again, perfectly fine. From here on in, every piece that you put out must be touching one of your other pieces. But you may only touch them by the corners. So something like that would not be allowed because they're not touching by the corners. That would be allowed. That would be fine. So we have our yellow. Now we can place a cross like that, and let's do something daft. And so, again, you don't have to, in fact, just to show it, you don't have to be touching the one that you've just placed. So, for example, I can do this as long as I'm only touching by the corners. Even a piece like this can be placed like so, because again, it's only touching by the corners. And could do that like that, and that like that. In fact, we'll that. And we'll put that like that. Now, in placing a piece, you might find yourself, as in this position here, bumping up against the sides of other colours. That's fine. This would actually be a very silly move for me because I've blocked off a corner for myself. But for to show you that you can bump into the sides of other colours as you expand into the board. You're just not allowed to touch the sides of your own colours. Again, this would do here. And here's a perfect example. Again, touching the sides of other colours, not a problem. And I've given myself corners to work with. Game continues until one of two things happen. Either one person has all 21 pieces out, not impossible, but very difficult, with everyone else trying to do the same thing, in which case they won automatically. Or, to use an old dominoes term, everyone's chapping. And if everyone's chapping, then you count up the squares on the pieces you have left. This, for example, would be 5 squares. If I've got all 5 squares there. And the person with the lowest number wins. Unsurprisingly, I adore this game. I have seen people, because of the shape of the pieces and so on, when they first see it, they go, is it like Tetris? And you're like, no, it's not. But I get why they say that because of the shapes involved. For a simple looking game, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. There really is. You'd be surprised. But it's a really fun, enjoyable, can be quite vexing in the sort of latter stages of the game. But it's a gorgeous game to play, and I recommend it highly. This is Hexagony. Now, I've only got a few of the tiles out to give you a sort of overview of the game. I've set up for 2 players. Usually, the players get all of these tiles mixed up together. There are 2 distinct patterns, as you can see from there. Either going clockwise, red, white, blue, or red, blue, white. And you also get a solid tile. I'll explain how that works in a minute. Object of the game is to score the most hexagons at the end of the game once all your tiles are down. How do you do that? Let me show you. So your first tile that you must place must be a multicoloured one. So let's say that. So white then plays, and when you're playing a tile, it must touch on all sides. Something like that. This has created a problem for red straight away. I don't think he can complete a hexagon. Doing that, that's a rather nasty move. So we'll do that instead. So white can then do that. And white gets, that's one completed white hexagon. And again, that would not be a legal move because the blue is there. So red cannot complete his hexagon that way. But what red could do is put that in there. And what happens is, if you can create the hexagons around it, there would be 3 full hexagons round it, then you would score the 3 points for those hexagons and a bonus point for the solid piece. Game continues until all the tiles are out, and then you count up the number of hexagons, and if you've managed to succeed in surrounding the solid colour, you would add an extra point, and whoever has the most points is the winner. I picked this game up, it was being demoed at the first Tabletop Scotland back in 2018, and I loved it. I thought it was a very simple, straightforward game. Interestingly, it is a game for only 2 or 3 players. Which I found fascinating, and it was being sold for like a £5, so I picked it up. I don't regret it. It doesn't get on table that often, but it's certainly a fun little game, and if you can find it for a reasonable price, I think it's good for a nice play every now and again. I certainly wouldn't make a long play of this at all. I don't think it's got the staying power. But what I do think it has is, I think it's got a good amount of game in there for a couple of fun little games. So that's Hexagony. This is Lanterns, which is a tile laying and set collection game. The object of the game is to get the most points. Funnily enough, you get the most points by collecting certain combinations of cards that you can then put back in for points. But how you get those cards is very interesting indeed. This is a starting tile, and its orientation gives you your starting card. Now, I've set up for a 2-player game. So, as red is facing me, I get a red card. As player 2 is sitting over here, as white is facing player 2, they get a white card, and that's their start. Whoever has the red card, because the other card that would be given would be black and blue, whoever has the red card starts. And what they do is, there is a turn order. First thing is, if they have tokens, if they have 2 of them, then they can cash them in for a card. Just 2 for 1 card. You can't go cashing in for multiple cards. But I'll show you how you get tokens in a small minute. Then you make a dedication, which is to put in sets of cards that you've gotten to gain these tokens up here, and I'll show you how you get that in a minute. But then you lay a tile, and the tile laying is the interesting part of this game, because you don't actually have to match the colours, but there's a reason you might want to, which I'm going to show you. If I place, say, the card here, I would get a black card because black is facing me, and player 2 would get an orange card because orange is facing them. So that's what I'm going to do. So I get a black card, and they get an orange. And I pick back up. Now, how to show this in such a way that would be useful. I want to show ones that is useful. Yes, this would be useful. So, my opponent, you can place the card anywhere you like. In fact, they're going to do this. Now, my opponent does that. They would get a red card because red is facing them, but because they've matched that colour, they would also get a black card. And because they're the first player, because it's their turn, they get it first. A red and a black. And because black is facing me, I also get a black. Now, the reason the turn order is important is because if you run out of these cards, they are finite. If you run out of those cards, then that's it. You don't get the card. If you play a tile with one of these, it's called a platform. When you place it, you also get a token. And more importantly, once that's placed, if someone places there, say, they would also get a token. So you can start stacking up the tokens fairly quickly. And you're looking to get these tokens. How do you get them? Well, this pile is for getting one card of each colour. This one is for 3 different pairs, and this one is for 4 of a kind. And you always take the top tile, and they decrease in value. And if there's no tiles of a particular type that you're looking for, you get one of these, which is just a little 4-point consolation. Game continues until that entire draw deck is gone and everyone has played every tile. They then get one final go to try and make dedications. To make it, and you can only make a single dedication, even if you've got enough cards to make more than one. You can only make a single dedication. And then whoever has the highest points is the winner. What do I think of Lanterns? I like Lanterns. It's a fun little game. But it doesn't, similarly to Hexagony, it doesn't get on table a lot. And the reason it doesn't get on table a lot is I think I have to be in the mood for it. But it is a fun game. It's enjoyable, it's interesting. There's a bit of strategy involved, not a lot, but it's there. But it is fun, and if you're looking for something a little different with regards to tile laying games, it's not too bad.